The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." He replied, "What do you wish me to do for you?" They answered him, "Grant that in your glory we may sit one at your right and the other at your left." Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Can you drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?" They said to him, "We can." Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right or at my left is not mine to give, but is for those for whom it has been prepared." When the 10 heard this, they became indignant at James and John. Jesus summoned them and said to them, "You know that those who are recognized as rulers over the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones make their authority over them felt. But it shall not be so among you. Rather, whoever wishes to be great among you will be your servant. Whoever wishes to be the first among you will be the slave of all. For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." The Gospel of the Lord. So I did not fully grasp that I was a father until I saw my daughter face to face. She had been born during the night, and I was getting ready to go back to the hospital in the morning, and that's when it finally hit me. I was the father. I was going to be the dad. So on the one hand, I thought that was fun. Fathers and mothers, they have a significant role to play in someone's life. And now it was my responsibility to play that role for my child. But on the other hand, I knew that parents get to make all the rules, and the kids have to follow those rules. And so I finally had someone else I could boss around, and they'd do whatever I told them to do. Well, later that same day, it dawned on me that I was not the boss. My daughter would tell me when it was time to change her diaper or burp her. Okay, so just for the sake of transparency and maybe for my wife's sanity here, I need to let you know that I had a lot to learn before I was like super dad. So I wasn't exactly on it at the beginning, at this early stage of our life. So I had a lot to learn. But as my children did grow, I did work with my wife to set boundaries and rules for our household. And, it's kind of a funny thing, really, that, even when you're setting these boundaries and rules for the kids, you're not doing it so that the parents can have this wonderful, blissful life. On the contrary, all these regulations and rules that you're setting up for your kids is to help the kids develop in a healthy way. So once again, the parents really aren't the boss of the kids. They're actually the service and support crew. When things are working the way they should, parents are there to help and support and ultimately love their children. One of the saddest and kind of miserable things I've had to endure in my life was watching a coworker get this wrong, so wrong. He came to work for years, sharing story after story about how he put his foot down and forced his adolescent child to comply with his every demand. And now, if what he reported is true, he won every battle in his home. So that kid had no say in what kind of music or listening to music, when they could come and go from the house, or clothes or anything like that. No choices for this kid. So I'm going to pause for a second here. So, since I'm talking about parenting, I realize, since it's a homily, that's like playing on the freeway blindfolded, so I don't want to be roadkill here. So I'm just going to say, I'm not trying to give the impression that this is a parent shouldn't correct their child's wayward behavior, and I'm not making any, this is how you do parenting statements here. I'm just kind of talking about this philosophical nature of parenting. Good parents are servant leaders to their kids, and they make their decisions based on love for their child. It's not loving, for example, to be downright promiscuous. Children need guardrails. Okay, so going back to this coworker, this undefeated coworker, eventually the child grew up and moved away, far away, actually to another continent. And later, sadly, his wife died of cancer. So his daughter did show up for the funeral, the daughter told him she would never see him again. So my coworker won every battle in the house there, but he lost the war. So in today's gospel reading, Jesus responds to James and John, and they're trying to make a power play. They want to be at the top of the organization, just under Jesus. So they say, "Grant that we may sit one at your right and the other at your left." So in context, they want to be number 2 and number 3 in command, still permitting Jesus to be number 1. So Jesus responds with an important teaching. First, he points out this nature of authoritarian leadership. Rulers lord it over them, and their great ones make their authority over them felt. So people living under such a ruler, they serve the king, and it is not the other way around. Jesus tells his disciples that they will not do this. It is a big smackdown for James and John. Jesus says that greatness comes when you're the servant. The greatest is the servant of all. And Jesus points out that he, as a servant, will give everything, his whole life, as a ransom. So around the year 2000, I was working in this large corporation, and I was promoted to a managerial role. And this company provided really good training and valuable training. And I learned this strange new cutting-edge method for management called servant leadership. The very first time someone coined the term servant leadership was in 1970 by Mr. Greenleaf. And he wrote this essay titled "The Servant as Leader," kind of this mind-blowing idea at the time. It took a long time. It took a long time for this to percolate and for the idea to gain steam before it was commonly discussed in corporate America. But by the year 2000, some companies had experimented with this servant leadership idea. And it really was radical for this time period. And so those companies, they shared their findings. And researchers concluded that there might actually be something to this idea of servant leadership. And so by the time I started my managerial training, studies had showed that companies with more servant leaders had better overall results, better productivity, less toxicity, lower turnover, and much happier employees. So with this many people in this room here listening to me right now, it's likely that some of you want nothing to do with this idea of servant leadership. It could be the parent that wants to control their child's every move, or the employee who longs for the day where they're the boss and everything they say goes, or the manager who doesn't listen but instead demands strict obedience from all their employees. Now, if that's you, you're kind of fighting against something that this philosophy that Jesus endorses, this servant leadership in this gospel today. And for those that behave like that, it's not loving to treat people like that. It's not loving to treat people the way I had talked about there. And it's not going to end well for people that are like that. So for me, I feel very fortunate that I received the graces that I needed to change my attitude about parenting. If I had held my course, my life would be in the tank right now. No question. So my coworker gave me that wonderful close-up view of what my life could have been like if I didn't make some changes. However, it does seem like this loss. It seems like something bad is happening when you are this servant to others. But when done properly, it can be an amazing win. It's so weird that it works like that. So Jesus came down from heaven to show us the way. And our lives are much better when when we follow this example that he's given us. For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many.